For close to a decade now, I have watched every Amy Schumer movie and every Amy Schumer stand up special that gets released. Not because I am a fan, in fact, quite the opposite. I don't like Amy Schumer. I do not like green eggs and ham. So then, why have I made it a tradition to watch every single new thing she puts out? That's like making hitting yourself in the head with a brick a tradition. Well, it's because sometimes in life, you have to do things you don't necessarily want to do, like growing up eating vegetables. Well, Miss Schumer is my vegetables. Does it make me healthier and stronger? Am I better for it? Absolutely not, really. It just kind of makes me unhappy. But I do this because I believe it's important that I do. This work I find to be crucial. In the words of John F. Kennedy, we choose to go to the moon and do the other things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. And I promise you there's nothing fucking harder than watching an Amy Schumer movie. She just released a new one. It's called Kinda Pregnant. It's on Netflix. It's not very good. Not the bravest take, not breaking new ground. I don't think anyone fell to their knees in surprise at my quick and dirty thoughts on it. Most people aren't really liking the movie. It's not being received overly well, which has become standard protocol for a Schumer production. But I'd still like to debrief on what I watched. It's therapeutic for me. It's very obvious I'm not the target demographic for this movie. Kinda Pregnant is not a film that's aiming to make me happy and kick my legs up in my chair in excitement. I recognize that. So it's entirely possible that you or a loved one really enjoy this movie and completely disagree with me on my critique of it. But just know if that's the case, you're wrong for it. This movie's just not good and I don't think achieves anything it sets out to do. I will say, though, her movies are significantly better than her stand-up. That's always kind of been the case. Not exactly the highest praise, I know that. That's like saying pee is better than piss. Kind of the same thing, but I imagine many of you haven't subjected yourself to the torture of watching a full Amy Schumer comedy set. Just take my word for this. It's one of those things where you finish it and you feel the need to go on Facebook to mark yourself safe. Like, you know that shit after a tragic event where people, like to let their family know they're alive? That's how it feels to finish one of those. Finishing an Amy Schumer movie, however, is just exhausting. Was I entertained? No. Did I laugh? No. So what did I get out of it? Nothing. Just an hour and 40 down the tubes. That's really about it. So Kinda Pregnant has Amy Schumer as the lead role, Lainey. Lainey wants a family badly. She's always wanted to be a mother. But the relationship she's been in for 4 years ends abruptly when the guy asks for a threesome and then starts being like this playboy. He's like becomes like fucking Tony Stark where he's got like 9 women following him at all times. So that falls apart and now she's approaching 40 and well, she doesn't have a husband or anything, but she still wants to be a mom and now her best friend just found out she's pregnant with her husband and it makes Lainey really jealous. She then puts on a fake pregnancy tummy and people assume she's pregnant. She doesn't correct them and then she ends up making friends while still putting on the ruse of being pregnant. And then she even falls in love with someone who thinks she's pregnant and now she's truly stuck because she has to keep up the facade, otherwise they're going to know that she's a liar and a weirdo for faking pregnancy for attention and friends in the first place. Now, an interesting twist on that concept is that she's only pretending to be pregnant half the time. So she fakes pregnancy with, like, one group of friends, but with her best friend, Kate, who's actually pregnant, she doesn't. And she's a middle school teacher, and she doesn't fake pregnancy there either. But she also told the other friend group that she's a teacher, so then sometimes they come and visit her at school, so then she'll take a balloon and stuff it under her shirt, so that way they'd be none the wiser. I'm not gonna bother yapping about the story that much because who gives a fuck? It's really just there as a vessel to lead Amy into wacky, sticky situations with this mess she's found herself in. And that'd be fine if the scenes were amusing, which of course was never in the cards, and I knew that when turning the movie on. Expecting an Amy Schumer movie to make you smile is like expecting salt water to not hurt your eyes. But with nothing else in the film, basically just being a bounce between one wacky scene to the next, it needs to hit on the comedy, and it doesn't. I will say, though, that there was a surprising lack of ma-vagina jokes, which Amy Schumer's become known for. That's her fucking bread and butter. Like, Amy Schumer and talking about pussy, that's spaghetti and meatballs right there. Now, of course, don't get me wrong. There is moments where she talks about her holes. In fact, she has a whole sequence dedicated to her mentioning all of her holes in a variety of ways. And there is still, of course, her talking about vagina. That's present, but in a lesser degree than it has been in her previous work. And that's because she has now delegated that role. She's kind of passed the torch to a different character in this movie, the guidance counselor that works with her at the school. I cannot remember that character's name, but it's a guidance counselor whose whole purpose in the film is just being very vulgar and over the top. You know, I just jerked off this alpaca and I put its cum in my macchiato. And she takes a swig of it, that kind of thing. And then she's talking about, like, you know, labia and all that. So it's still there, but it's just not always Amy Schumer being the instigator, which I found to be pretty interesting. Instead, Amy Schumer is focused on being really bombastic and, like, slapstick. So, like, the earliest attempts at comedy in this film are Amy Schumer walking up to her date and she stumbles. So she falls down like a stair and she's like, oh geez, oh man. And then she comes up to a cake and fucking slams it because she thought there was going to be a wedding ring in it. So, and then she starts yelling and screaming like, you want a scene? Here's a scene. Rips off her dress, twirling it over her head. And that's kind of her comedy in the movie, is just being like really loud and becoming the center of attention. Like there's another scene where she's on a date with Will Forte, who becomes the main love interest. And he mentions there's a guy on the ice that's kind of ruining the ice. So she screams at him that he's going to get killed if he keeps doing it up. She's fucking yelling and screaming at him. And that's most of her jokes throughout the film. Now, of course, she has like the little quips and she bounces off Will Forte for these quips. It doesn't work for me. Maybe someone out there will really enjoy the comedic stylings of Amy Schumer. Wasn't hitting for me. That was shitting, unfortunately. And one thing I found really interesting is that throughout the entire runtime of this film, I would imagine there is not a single scene that goes by without Lainey being present. I'm pretty sure across the entire hour 40 or however long the movie is, she is there for every fucking second of it. And it feels like every character in this movie is there solely to elevate her character, because she just steps all over them. Every character just feels like some kind of fucking, you know, like plyometric that she'll jump on top of in order to get like the joke in. So the most egregious example is her best friend Kate, the one who's actually present and then sends her down this spiral. Kate, she's not even a character. She's just kind of like a step stool for Lainey to plop herself on top of. Because every time Kate is in a scene, Lainey's there too, and then Lainey makes it all about herself and making her the spectacle of it. And it's not like, you know, that's the message, how Lainey's been selfish, like you're jealous of your friend's happiest moment, you know, having this baby. No, because the film doesn't actually give any consequences to Lainey for her lying and all of her dishonesty. And also the way that she like melted down in class. Like she started a fucking fire in the school because she was having like this big breakdown, and she's just in general a bad teacher from everything they show. But she doesn't get any consequences at all. She doesn't learn or grow. So that definitely isn't the message. It's just every time there is a scene with another character, Lainey will be there to ensure that that other character doesn't get to do anything. It has to be Amy Schumer being the full fucking focus at all times. It just felt really weird to me. It seems as though there was this almost spiteful decision made from the production staff. This was produced by Happy Madison. Adam Sandler is credited as one of the producers. And it almost feels like Adam Sandler was like, okay, so people don't like Amy Schumer? Well, how about a movie where it's Amy Schumer in every fucking scene? You don't like her? Well, you're going to get her for every goddamn frame of this movie. It's like when, you know, your parents catch you smoking a cigarette and they're really disappointed. It's like, what are you doing? Okay, you like to smoke cigarettes? Well, here, you're going to smoke the whole damn pack right now. You know, that kind of thing. It's just, it was so much Amy Schumer. And I know it's an Amy Schumer movie, but holy shit. It really, like, I can't think of a scene that happened that didn't have her in it and trying to take all of the attention away from all of the other characters. no character in this movie besides her has anything to do except for Will Forte's character Josh, whose only role is to love Amy unconditionally, immediately, and not care that she has completely deceived him from the very beginning, and he actually doesn't know anything about her because everything she has ever said to him basically is a fucking lie. And he's just supposed to be like a clapping seal that's okay with it because they fucked once. It's just, I don't know. I don't really understand what the movie was even trying to do, like, with the messaging of it or anything, if there even was one. Because it's not even a movie that celebrates pregnancy or anything. A lot of these slapstick jokes Amy plays is about how, you know, she's gonna, like, kill the baby and get an abortion, and she's, like, falling on her stomach all the time. So, like, there's panic ensuing. So there's not, like, even really anything beyond just giving you, like, wacky scenes that are supposed to make you laugh. But I just don't think the comedy hits, so I don't think many people will laugh at them. And judging by, like, most people's reception to it, it's not really hitting in any of the demographics, even outside of just, like, the fucking dumb idiot like me that'll sit down and watch it knowing full well he's not going to like it going into it. You know what I mean? Anyway, though, I'll stop ranting about it. What an extraordinary use of a bit of my Valentine's Day here watching Amy Schumer's Kinda Pregnant. So, just needed to vent about it. And, you know, I watch every Amy Schumer production, and I'll continue to do so. And maybe one day we will find gold. There will be an actual banger from Schumer. But that day has not come to pass yet, and it is not Kind of Pregnant. But who knows? Maybe it'll be the next one. That's really about it. So yeah. Jinkies. That was not good. I had a couple friends of mine see this movie before I did, and they all hated it. And I'd already seen a lot of the buzz online about it not being very good. And I just thought to myself that it couldn't possibly be as bad as people were saying. But hooey! It's really just not good. It's a shockingly confusing fumble of a sequel. Like, the most fun I had going to see the new Joker movie was in the car ride to and from it because I was listening to Warhammer 40k lore on the Horus Heresy. And just listening to that was better than seeing Joker Folie Deux. Fair warning, I'm going to be getting into the nitty-gritty. I will be dumping spoilers on you out the wazoo for this film just to give you my full thoughts on all of it. It is confusing how badly this movie missed the mark. Like, I know sequels are never really going to be as good as the original. That's always such a tall order. Like, that is an almost impossible Herculean task. But this one is way off. Like, it is just not close. And I wasn't surprised that there's so many musical numbers in it. That was well established a long time ago that this was going to be like a pseudo-musical to a certain extent. I'm not a fan of musicals in any way, shape, or form, really. There's a few of them I like, but overall, it's not one of my favorites. But I was willing to go in with an open mind if it was a good movie and if the musical numbers somehow added to it, but they don't. The music's fine, like, I don't think the music is bad or anything, but the musical numbers actually just feel like filler content to try and distract you from how choppy and clusterfucky the movie itself is. Like, it feels like they were a big afterthought that they needed to just start inserting to fill space. Because this isn't a sequel that was planned. The Joker movie was supposed to be a one-off, but it made so much money that they came back for a sequel. And it really does feel like a soulless cash grab. It doesn't have a story to tell. It doesn't have a point. There's some cool scenes, and a couple of the musical sequences have some really impressive visuals, but they don't add anything, and a lot of the musical numbers don't even tie into the scene that preceded them. They're totally isolated in Arthur's head, like in his fantasy, and they don't actually even relate to anything narratively, so it just feels kind of worthless. Not all of them, but I'd say probably the majority of them don't actually even relate to what's happening plot-wise. They just are a random musical number. Some of them do relate and they're okay, like they're not awful, but I just think it would have been more effective if they just talked instead of sang at each other. That happens a lot. So like Arthur will be mid-conversation with somebody and then he'll just like break out into song. And I come and I cry and I look in the mirror and I say, who is that guy? Because society is seeming on the brink, and when I sleep with an itchy ass, my finger will stink. And it's like, what the fuck is this? Like, it becomes unbearable how often that happens in this movie. By the 8th or ninth musical sequence like that, I got up to go take a tinkle break, and I heavily contemplated just going home. I don't want to exaggerate and say this is like the worst movie I've ever seen, because it's not. It's not even the worst movie of the year, not even close. That honor still goes to Borderlands movie. It's also not the worst sequel ever made, but it is probably the most disappointing sequel I've seen. It just doesn't have a point. And these musical numbers just feel like bloat to try and take your attention away from how weak the story is. This isn't really a Joker movie, it's more of like a Harley Quinn origin story, which would have been fine if it was good. It's just not. It also feels like Todd Phillips has regret and isn't proud of the first movie, because a lot of what happens in this movie is undoing a lot of what the first one did. So the Joker's not even really in this movie. I'm just going to tell you right now, it's mainly Arthur Fleck just being sad. Like Arthur Fleck going through bad things. He is completely regressed into just the old Arthur Fleck, who doesn't have that Joker persona anymore and that like confidence or anything. But I do want to be clear, I still think Joaquin Phoenix does an incredible job with this character. I just think the writing around him was significantly weaker on this rodeo. Lady Gaga, I also think does a really good job as Harley Quinn, but it's just really frustrating how it feels like they just ham-fisted musical numbers in here because Lady Gaga is such a good singer. So pretty much every scene she's in, she's singing. Like, I don't think she really got a chance to shine and show, like, her acting prowess, and I think she's a great actress. Instead, she just is forced to just sing every time she's on screen. So I think that just takes away from the character as well. But anyway, the Joker is not really a character in this movie. Even when he's in the makeup and trying to puff out his chest and put on the act of being the Joker, it is unrecognizable from how it was in the first movie. It feels so forced, and in this movie, the Joker's just kind of a fucking moron. Like, he's actually just kind of an idiot. So, a big component of this is him going to trial. And you've seen the trailers, I'm sure. He ends up representing himself. And I thought that was going to be the turning point where most of the movie had been back and forth on Arthur and Joker. Harley is obsessed with Joker, not Arthur. She doesn't care about Arthur that much. It's the Joker that she loves. And when that happens and he fires his lawyer in the middle of the courtroom, I thought it was going to be like, oh, he's going to go into that Joker we saw at the end of the first movie. He doesn't. And really, the entire courtroom drama section of this movie, which is a huge piece of it, is just so flat. Because it's a complete steamroll. Like, we saw everything that happened in the first Joker movie, but a good chunk of this trial is them just telling you what all of us already saw from the first movie. So it just becomes kind of wasteful. The only good moment of the trial is when Gary takes the stand. That back and forth between Gary and the Joker is by far the best part of this whole movie. And it doesn't last that long. Everything else in the courtroom is just really underwhelming. There's nothing the Joker or Arthur or his team can really do to get him out of that situation, so you're just seeing him get fucking slapped by the consequences of his actions, which could have been fine. Like, I think that's a fine narrative point to go down, but there needed to be something in there to make it worth watching, because basically what we're getting is like a lore dump, a recap of what we've already seen. And even when Arthur tries to slip into the Joker in the courtroom, it just doesn't work in my opinion. Like, he doesn't make any arguments, he doesn't even like try and defend himself or make some kind of statement or anything at all. He just talks in a circle, ineffectively. And then he imagines himself killing some people, but that's it. Like, it just doesn't work. I didn't think it worked at all when he tried to be the Joker here. Especially when you consider that a good chunk of this film is dedicated to try and get the audience to buy into the idea that Arthur and the Joker are separate, like it's a split personality. Like, that's his defense's argument that they try and make to help him out in court. And they really try and make you buy into that idea. They even have like an animation that plays at the beginning of the movie. And that video is supposed to try and, like, I don't know, kind of push you down that thought process. But that is so stupid. That doesn't work at all because you've seen the first movie. Like, you've already seen the first movie. Why are we even trying that? It wasn't executed very well. Like, that whole idea of trying to separate these two, it just doesn't work. It's pretty poorly done. I will say the thing that I thought had the most promise was Harley Quinn. Since a lot of this is basically her origin story, they did set up some interesting ideas. Like how she's kind of just manipulating the Joker. Like, she lies to him a lot in order to get close to him and kind of goad him in certain directions, because that's what she fell in love with, was the Joker and like the idea of the Joker. So she's constantly like manipulating him, and it's, I think, could have been an interesting dynamic if it wasn't always just in sing-song fashion, and if it wasn't always just like hammered home what she's doing towards the end. And the ending of this movie super sucks. The ending of this movie is like actually atrocious. So the courtroom drama is starting to wrap up. He's clearly not winning. He eventually then goes to the jury and starts talking about how, you know, the Joker's not real. It was never real. It's always been Arthur. Which is like that big moment, like, oh, he's been faking it this whole time. There is no like second, you know, personality or anything. The Joker's, it's a complete fucking ruse. It's a sham. It's always just Arthur. And while this is going on, a bomb goes off at the courthouse. That's that came out of nowhere. This whole movie doesn't have any like action per se. There's a couple things that happen in a fantasy where like the Joker gets shot or the Joker hits the judge with a gavel. Like that all happens in a fantasy, but in the actual reality of the film, nothing like that happens at all. So this bomb explosion comes out of fucking nowhere, like a jump scare. So bomb blows up in the courthouse. Joker escapes. He just walks right out, and he's going to Harley, who doesn't really want to see him, because after what Joker said about the Joker's not real, it's only Arthur, she storms out of the courtroom. And she doesn't return his call. He starts fucking singing to her over voicemail for the millionth time, just another goddamn song, and she ignores it. He leaves the courthouse. He gets picked up by some like Joker super fans who get him, put him in the car, and then he runs away from them to try and find Harley. Before he gets out of their car, though, there's statements made by the two people in Joker makeup about how like the whole city's gonna burn, this and that, and it seems like Arthur Fleck has like regret and doesn't agree with that. He gets out of the car and starts running. And I think that moment, and he's also getting chased by the Joker's like, we still love you, we love you, Joker. I think that's a moment that's supposed to be, it's very on the nose, supposed to be for the audience to be like, oh, people are relating to the most extreme, unhinged parts of the Joker and using it as a platform for violence type thing. And Arthur is running away from that, trying to find Harley to start a life of love with her. When he finally finds her on the iconic staircase, she wants nothing to do with him. She tells him that it's all just a fantasy. It's always been the Joker that she loves, not Arthur, and he threw away that fantasy, so the Joker's not real. It's only Arthur, and she leaves. It's all just a fantasy. Get the fuck out of here, Buster. Then he gets taken back into jail, thrown back in Arkham, and then he gets told he has a visitor, walks down a hallway, and this random dude who we'd only seen a couple of glimpses of throughout the movie, like looking on like menacingly throughout the film occasionally, talks to him in the hallway asking if he can tell him a joke. And he's like, all right, yeah, if it's a quick joke. And he's like, I'll make it quick. And the joke basically just ends with him saying, gets what he deserves, and then shanks him like 5 or 6 times, and the Joker dies. Arthur Fleck collapses and dies. And in the background, it's blurred to make it really mysterious and very cinematic. The guy who stabbed him, this random fucking psychopath, is now cutting his face in the shape of a smile. And it's, I believe, alluding to Heath Ledger's Joker, who had the scars in the shape of a smile. And if that is the case, I am pretty sure that's what it's trying to do there. If that is what it's actually aiming for, that is just insultingly shit. That, it doesn't fit at all. Like, you can start picking apart, like, the timeline till the cows come home, but even the context of this film, it just doesn't fucking fit at all. It is a terrible conclusion. Even setting aside the absurdity of this alluding to Heath Ledger's Joker, how this psychopath is now going to take on the mantle of the Joker and be what we saw in The Dark Knight, even setting aside the lunacy of that, this movie actually just goes nowhere. It ends in the exact same place it started without really much changing, and he just dies in a hallway to a random guy. There is no comeuppance for some bad people in this film. For example, the guards. Towards the end of the movie, there is a scene where the guards snap on Arthur after seeing him in the courtroom. They assault him, brutalize him, and there is an implied rape of Arthur by the guards. And the guards just kind of tip their hat to him at the end. That's it. They don't get any like punishment for that or anything, which just, that's not a satisfying conclusion. Arthur is a bad guy. The Joker is a villain. But I don't think like it's necessarily the right call to have other villains beat him up rape him, and those villains are fine at the end of the movie. Like, there should have been a moment where the Joker comes out and he kills those guards for that, or something to that effect. Like, it's just, this movie, it really feels like Todd Phillips hated the character he made, so wanted to unmake the character like as best he could. It's just so weird, the direction this movie goes. And beforehand, I know Todd tried to say that he believed music was like an integral part to exploring Arthur as like the complex character. I'm calling baloney on that. That's some fiddlesticks. No shot, because the music doesn't really explore him. The music doesn't really explore anything. It feels like it's here because Lady Gaga is here, and she's so good at singing. The music, like I said, only sometimes even connects to what we're even seeing in the plot. Other times it's just totally isolated. Like, yes, it is a look inside of Arthur's psyche occasionally, but it doesn't contribute anything. It doesn't help with the understanding of the character or how Arthur sees himself, really, outside of like a couple of isolated instances of these sequences. Otherwise, they're just musicals for the sake of it. And it just feels worthless. It's just so odd to take it in that direction. What I truly believe happened here is Todd Phillips made a great movie with the Joker one. That movie was incredible. I liked it a lot. Most people liked it a lot. It's a very well done film. And that movie made significantly more money than Todd and the executives were expecting. So he got that call, offered a big check, and said, fuck it. Fine. I'll phone in a sequel. And he did. But instead of just doing what most people do for an uninspired sequel where they kind of just repeat what the first one did a little worse for the second, he took it in the most unconventional route ever just to be quirky. Like, he took it in this completely different direction and did it terribly. Again, it's not like the worst movie I've ever seen. It's not even the worst sequel I've ever seen, but it is the most confusing one because there's no reason for it to exist. A, it's there just because money, a lot of money from the first one. We need the second one to hopefully get even more money from those piggy banks. And B, why in the fuck does it seem to have such a grudge against the first movie? Like I said multiple times now, it actually just feels like they took that character and broke it. Like, actually just like completely shat on what they built up for this character in the first movie. Instead of expanding on it, growing it, or even exploring it in a different way, they just redid it and wiped their ass with most of what they tried to establish in the first. It just doesn't make sense. And even when it has like an interesting idea or two, like there were a couple moments in this film where I was like, oh, this is building up to something that could be cool. And then it goes to an unrelated musical number, kills its own momentum, comes back, and it's in a totally different spot. The movie's just choppy. Like, it is just choppy. So even when they have something that's starting to develop, it ruins it with a musical and then never comes back to that momentum it was building. So like it just doesn't work very well. There's a couple of things to like about it, like with the performances of some of the actors here for sure. There are some very cool visual moments. Like I said, in the courtroom with Gary and Arthur, that is a very strong scene. Like, that whole sequence is very powerful. But outside of like these very rare instances of this film, there's just not a whole lot to like. So yeah, I don't really give number reviews to things anymore. I always just answer the question, is it worth watching? And for Joker Folie Adieu, Joker 2, no. I don't think it's worth watching. It actually just feels like a waste of time. It feels like this is a film that has no reason to exist. It never wanted to exist, but had to because of money. So I don't think it's worth watching, and that's disappointing. It's really about it. So, yeah. I just saw Megalopolis. Wow. It was like embarrassing sitting there watching that. I actually felt shame just being there, witnessing that disaster of a movie. And to make it worse, insult to injury, I watched it right after Joker 2. So I just made the review for Joker 2. Spoiler, that movie was also bad. This movie was worse for sure, but man, what an unholy 1-2 combo that was. This was like a punch flurry that not even Mike Tyson could deliver, going back to back with Joker and then Megalopolis. So I took a shower before talking about Megalopolis because I know I'm going to get heated on this because it's just so weird. This movie had over $100 million budget. And I don't get why. I don't get it. I already made like a whole rant about that with like these inflated budgets, but this film in particular it's so stupid to have a budget that big because it's a movie devoid of a single
element of a story. It has things that happen, sure, but it is such a fucking mess. This is a movie that smells of pretentiousness. It's very clear this wanted to be deeper than it is. This is a movie that wasn't made for any audience in particular. It was made for critics. It was made for people that love the smell of their own farts to pretend like they understand the subtle vicissitudes that the director was trying to convey. But in this film, it doesn't even work with that niche, because even critics don't like it. It's just not very good, like at all. It is a disjointed, like actual fever dream experience. So let's just dive into it. There's going to be spoilers, fair warning. This is a movie that I feel like it's almost impossible to spoil because there isn't really a movie here. It's a collection of random shit that happens. It's like a collection of Francis Ford Coppola's memories from dreams that he had that he tries to piece together loosely here. Very similar to like how the Rick and Morty anime does it. Like, this is the Rick and Morty anime with $100 million budget. I'm also pretty sure every actor in here was just directed to be as weird as they possibly can. So Shia LaBeouf, for example, he's in this movie, and he dials his, like, wackiness up to 11. So, like, in the very beginning of the movie, they're, like, going to this big press thing about something that they're opening, and Shia LaBeouf's there, and his uncle is also Caesar's uncle, and he's like, I heard you're doing the hanky-pank with your sisters. Can you stop that? And Shia LaBeouf's like, no, I won't stop that. So he's, like, doing this, and then he, like, grabs the railing and he like kicks his feet up. He goes, and then he like puts himself in a dress in the next scene, like also still doing those mannerisms and stuff. And also Adam Driver as Caesar, someone I thought was supposed to be like this cavalier, like genius guy. He's kind of the same way. So at that same press event, he's there and he's giving a monologue, and he is actually a Reddit mod. So Caesar's character, I am 100% sure, is inspired by like the quintessential Reddit mod that everybody pictures in their head. The way he carries himself, the way he talks, he's always some of this. And like the way he speaks to people is so fucking cringe. Like actual Discord admin level shit. So like there's a scene where the mayor's daughter shows up and he talks to her, he's like, ugh, Jiminy Christmas. But he doesn't say Jiminy Christmas. But he scoffs, he's like, ugh, you, of course, you've wandered into my quarters. I'd prefer if you weren't here. I don't like to dawdle with the riffraff. I prefer to carry myself in conversations with those that like to think, so we can have intellectual discussions on important subjects. So if you wouldn't mind excusing yourself from my abode, I would be much appreciative of that. Why don't you go see yourself back to the club and get out? And he says that, by the way. That wasn't verbatim, but he literally says club like that. It's awful. It's terrible to listen to. But I will say, it is fun bad pretty often, actually. I did find myself audibly saying, what the fuck, with a smile on my face and giggling occasionally at how horrible what I was watching is. Because it's really shitty, but sometimes in an unintentionally entertaining way. It tries to be so profound and falls flat on its fucking face. So let's begin. I don't think the movie is dog shit out of the gate. In fact, I actually quite like the visuals in this film, like the style of it I think is interesting. But by the time it gets to the halfway point, you're already so lost in the sauce here that you have no clue what's happening. So it all just becomes kind of worthless anyway. But I do think there is a style here that is unique. However, the visuals really are hit or miss. There are times where it looks really good. Like it seems like, hey, this is a big budget production. And then there's times where it actually looks like they filmed it at our warehouse in front of our green screen. Like there are some of the worst green screen moments in here that I've seen in a modern film. Like it makes some of DC's biggest stinkers for CGI look like award winners. I don't know what happened and why there's some incredible visuals here and then some absolute like Adobe After Effects first year attempt like visuals. I don't get it. So something definitely went awry in the pipeline here for the production, but overall I do think the style is eye-catching. Now, the beginning of the film isn't super dog shit. It's not like Turbo Cheeks or anything. It actually is almost cohesive. They introduce our two main characters that we're going to be seeing a lot of. It's Adam Driver playing Caesar, who is like this genius architect who's found like the god particle basically called Megalon. And it's Giancarlo Esposito playing Cicero, who is the mayor, who does not like Caesar. They butt heads constantly. And the film, like, it's not like it's a mess because I'm too stupid to understand it. I know that's a lot of cope people like to try in a film like this, where they like stick their pinky out. The plebeians just simply couldn't understand this high art. What a shame. I understand it because I'm enlightened. That's not the case here. I actually think this movie is very easy to understand on the themes it's trying to get across in the beginning, where it actually had a semblance of a narrative. In the second half of the film, there's nothing. There's actually nothing. We'll get to that in a minute. It is a fucking battlefield of nonsense. But in the beginning, I think it's pretty clear. It's introducing characters that have different ideologies. So, like, there's a reporter who keeps fucking her way up the ladder, trying to get more and more power, more and more wealth. She has, like, a fling with Caesar. Caesar's somewhat of, like a playboy to a certain extent. He's, like, this genius, cavalier kind of guy. Cicero is really against what Caesar represents, which is change. He is trying to think about the future, whereas Cicero's focused on the present. And that's the big clash of ideals. So this is very clearly inspired by, like, the fall of Rome. They drill that home. They shove that down your fucking throat. Like, the location here is called New Rome. It's basically just New York, though. So the whole idea is the dreamer, the architect here, Caesar, wants to bring change. But the rich and powerful around him, they're pretty okay being stagnant and focusing more on, like, the present and just keeping people, like, occupied as opposed to getting ready for what comes next. Caesar has an uncle who's, like, the richest person in the fucking universe. His name's Hamilton, and he's beyond absurdly wealthy. So Caesar also has a lot of power, a lot of money, a lot of influence. And the whole idea is he wants to use the megalon particle to make Megalopolis, which will be a utopia, which is all about the future and getting the next generation ready for what comes. And also, Caesar has a superpower. He can stop time. Not only can he stop time, he can fully manipulate it. He controls time. And you'd think that'd be like an important component of this story. It's not. He does it maybe 3 times. And he really only does it when he wants to watch a building fall once. And then the other 2 times he does it is to kiss a girl. Oh, and then he does it one more time where he just shows that he can do it. He never actually uses it for anything. It is completely worthless, meaningless. I don't even know why they bothered giving him a superpower, other than what it represents. So here's where we get to, again, the double meanings and shit that like to try and get woven in here unsuccessfully because the film's just very underwhelming. The idea, I believe, that they're trying to convey with Caesar stopping time is one that they do kind of like hammer into you at one point because his love interest comes in after he's lost this power due to self-doubt. She kind of explains that art, every piece of art, uses time, manipulates time, controls time. Music turns time into rhythm. Architecture freezes time in these buildings, this and that. So the idea here with his superpower isn't necessarily that he's has the ability to control time, even though he literally does. It's more about the representation that his vision, his art, is the architecture and the ability to stop time with his creation. Now, his love interest, the reason she even gets interested in him in the first place is she happens to see him stop time. She doesn't get stopped. Everyone else around him gets frozen in time. She doesn't. She's able to, like, process it and, like, wow, he can control time. Most people will be really impressed by that. And the idea here that they're trying to get across, I believe, is that she can see his artistic vision, and he is able to understand that she gets the vision, which is why he falls in love with her and her him. And this all would be fine and dandy if there was anything that comes from it. Like, they set up this shit, it's not that subtle, it's not very deep, it's all kind of like obvious, I think, for the most part, and they don't even do anything with it. It's just like a bunch of different fucking ideas that don't work together that get thrown in here. It's a waste of time. And it introduces so many plot elements that never play a role in this. So like the superpower, for example, it doesn't actually play a role in this at all. There's also a satellite that they introduce in the beginning that's about to, like, fall into the earth and maybe be a problem, but then they deem it's not that big of a deal because it's hitting somewhere kind of remote. And then eventually towards the end of the movie, here comes the satellite. It's changed course. It's going to hit New Rome directly. No! And then it hits New Rome, blows up like 3 buildings, and then it's never addressed again. Like, and then also there's a plot line where Caesar's wife died, and for some reason he was accused of murdering her. And Cicero, the mayor, was actually the DA at the time trying to pin murder on him. He was eventually acquitted of that. And then there's like this scene where he's buying flowers for his wife, except his wife's dead, so it's like kind of all in his head. but it shows like he still loved his wife. And I thought that was going to be a big component of this, but it's not. Turns out like he wasn't the best husband really, and his wife ended up like driving off a bridge and dying, and then something mysteriously happened to the body, and they accuse Caesar of like taking the body, except he didn't take the body. It was actually some kind of big cover up. And then Cicero, when he finds out that Caesar's like, impregnated his daughter, he's like, listen, Caesar, I love my daughter, and here's a red envelope that has my confession about your wife's body, which is never addressed again. Also, his wife's body never mattered in the plot. Also, his wife never mattered in the plot. The biggest thing that happened with his wife is where he like really offhandedly mentions that he found Megalon by trying to bring his wife back to life, and then that's it. Then he goes right back to making out and impregnating the mayor's daughter. All of these things get introduced, but don't actually mean anything or do anything. Like, there's a whole scene where the reporter that was fucking Caesar ends up marrying his uncle for his money, and they throw this big wedding at a coliseum where they have like wrestlers wrestling, and then they have this girl do a musical number, and she's like the virgin that New Rome sponsors. Like, she's a New Rome enforced virgin. So during this wedding celebration, there's a moment where she has a musical number, and then it leads to people like donating money for her virginity fund or something. Like, I don't even know what they're bidding on. Like, they start bidding. It gets up to like $100 million just to give her money for being a virgin. Like, it makes no sense. And then all of a sudden, Shia LaBeouf's in this movie, acting like an absolute crazy person, which is fine, I guess, but it doesn't do anything. He's just like weird for the sake of being weird. It doesn't actually do anything for the plot. But anyway, Shia LaBeouf comes up with this nefarious plot to try and like hurt Caesar. So he deepfakes a video of him taking that girl's virginity, except she was underage. So then he starts to like get tried for like statutory rape, except then it turns out that the girl's 23, and then like the charges immediately get dropped. And then the whole thing with that girl, Caesar, the virgin, whatever, none of that ever gets addressed outside of the 10 minutes that became a plot point. It's like Francis Ford Coppola completely forgot it was even written in here. Like, it's just this complete nonsensical fucking dumpster fire of things that happen. And I can't even say happen, because a lot of things don't even really happen. Like, almost nothing happens. It is impossible to piece together what the actual plot is past the halfway point. And I'd say a little before the halfway point, it goes completely unhinged and off the rails. It falls apart, and it was barely even held together in the first place. But at least there was a semblance of where things were going. But then it just becomes indecipherable. It's like Finnegan's Wake visually. Like, just complete gibberish. So, like, the plot's moving forward. Eventually, like, Shia LaBeouf's character, Claudio, he starts leading a movement that's, trying to push Caesar out, push the mayor out. He's leading the charge and like, getting into politics. Things aren't going super well for Caesar, who gets shot by a child as like an assassination attempt that Claudio was behind, but he survives because Megalon got fused with his skull, which regrew his whole brain and his whole face. So like, it's literally a god particle. It's like a magic particle that can just do anything, including building utopia. The girl who married the uncle then starts having sex with Claudio. So like, there's this whole uncomfortable scene. The girl is played by Aubrey Plaza, by the way. And so Aubrey Plaza goes up to Shia LaBeouf, and she's like, your grandfather, we need to steal his money. You're a naughty boy, aren't you? And he's like, yes, Auntie Wow. Her name is Wow Platinum. That's the character's name, Wow Platinum. And this scene goes on for way too long, an uncomfortably long period of time, where she's like, does my ass look good in this? And he's like, yeah. And she said, no, yes, Auntie Wow. Say that. And he's like, yes, Auntie Wow. And then she like shoves her whole pussy in his face, and he starts eating her out, saying, thanks, Auntie Wow. And then she's like, do you want to fuck me? And he's like, yes, Auntie Wow. And then she goes over her plan to get Claudio to become the interim CEO to force out Hamilton so they can have all of his infinite wealth. So then they're together, and then they do execute that plan, and it kicks Hamilton out somehow, and then Hamilton has a heart attack, except he's faking it, so he's like in bed, and Claudio and Wow Platinum pay him a visit. And a lot of people, I think, talked about this scene because someone mentioned it on stream like 2 days ago. So this is the scene where Hamilton's in bed and they're around him, and he's still pretending to be like injured to a certain extent from the heart attack. So he says, "One more thing. Do you like my boner?" Because there's like something sticking up in the sheets. And like, "Do you like my boner?" And then he takes the sheet off, and it's a little bow and arrow, like Cupid's bow and arrow. So he shoots a little arrow, which hits Aubrey Plaza in the heart, instantly killing Wow Platinum. And then he shoots 2 more arrows into the ass of Shia LaBeouf as he runs away. And he says, "It's the closing bell, you Wall Street slut." Something like that before firing the arrow, killing Aubrey Plaza. It's bad. Like, it's bad. But like I said, that's kind of like fun shitty. Do you like my boner? Like, I mean, it got a little laugh out of me, the absurdity of it. Maybe that's the whole point of the movie, is just to be so incomprehensibly absurd that you're supposed to find enjoyment of it. But you're not really laughing with the movie, you're kind of laughing at it. Because it's a disaster. This movie is a disaster. So, like, even Megalopolis itself, what it is, like the utopia that Caesar is building, it's a fucking amusement park. He is literally making an amusement park. So you see Megalopolis at the end, like, he gets it made and everyone moves to Megalopolis, and somehow it's supposed to save the world, and somehow the mayor, who's been really adamant against it, thinking that Caesar's like this evil bad guy, this can never work, whatever, he ends up going there and he's like, "Wow, this place is fucking incredible. Wow, look at that. Yeah, this is going to save the world. But shake my hand and tell me that you're going to build diligently," or something. He's like, "Yeah, of course." And the place is actually like little roller coasters. So you ride around on Pokeballs on these golden highways. Oh, actually, they're kind of like the little pods out of Jurassic World. You ride around on those in little golden highways, like tiny little highways, and all of the buildings are like seashells. It actually kind of reminds me of the concept art for Akon City. You remember that like scam Akon tried to run? It actually kind of looks like that. I think they took design elements from Akon City for Megalopolis. It's so silly. Like, somehow this is the utopia? This is what saves the world? Like, what? It was so dumb. Man, I could go on and on about, like, the insanity of this film. I just can't believe this got made, and I am even more stunned that this had over $100 million budget. What a waste of money. So, I know it's not doing well financially, so everyone's already made the joke calling it Megaflopolis, but man, it really is. This shit sucks. Like, I don't get it, what they were going for. Like, I get in the beginning what they tried to set up with, like, the pretty obvious imagery and, like, the ideologies that they introduced. Like, I get that, but then it just doesn't even follow any of that. Like, it doesn't even go down that path. It's just a complete mess. So, is Megalopolis worth watching? No. But if you like fun bad movies, this might be one to stream when it comes out. I think it is fun bad. I think it's more oftentimes enjoyably shitty than it is boringly shitty. Like, there was never a moment in the film where I was like, man, this is like unbearable to sit through. I was always like, okay, this is kind of dragging, but I know there's going to be something so stupid that it'll probably like breathe life back into this. And I was usually right. It is fun bad pretty often. So if you like shittily entertaining films, this one might be for you. But I would not recommend paying money to go see it under any circumstance. That's about it. So yeah. Joker 2 is a bad movie. I'd even go as far as saying it's a horrible film. But I didn't expect it to flop nearly as hard as it currently is. This is pathetic, the numbers it's putting up in the box office right now. This is the Concorde of movies. The studio stands to lose roughly $150 million based on the estimates right now if the projections keep being followed. It is disastrous. I thought no matter how terrible this film was, it would still do well in the box office because it had such a large fan base that I thought would go see it no matter what, just to give it a chance. Nope, that wasn't the case at all. If you needed to escape from authorities and needed a place to lay low, buy a ticket to Joker 2. No one would ever check that auditorium. No one is going there. Those theaters are more empty than the room Squidward goes to be all alone in the void. It's bad. Also, I make that reference with Squidward a lot. That's just something that's always in my noodle. That's probably still one of my favorite scenes in SpongeBob. But anyway, Right now, Joker 2 has opened to a $37.8 million box office domestically, which is actually lower than Morbius. What great company to have right there. It has done worse than Morbius so far. Now, globally, Joker 2 has brought in about 114 million, which isn't the smash success they were expecting it to be. That number sounds very high, but with the amount of money they put into it, it's still not doing well at all. And in the domestic box office, it's horrific. They're starting to realize Joker 2 isn't a tragedy, it's a fucking comedy. Everyone is pointing and laughing at this thing. It super sucks. But not only that, Joker 2, Folie, Deux, PU, this is the poop that just keeps on stinking. Because not only is its box office performance lackluster, it has the lowest cinema score out of any comic book movie ever, at a D. Now, I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up your butthole pretending that I know everything there is to know about cinema score. This is actually really like one of the few times I've heard of it, so I'm not the most familiar with it, but it's been around for a while and it is a consistent score that pulls moviegoers after seeing a movie just to kind of gauge reactions, and then they assign a grade to it. And prior to Joker 2, the record holder for lowest cinema score for a comic book movie was Fantastic Four from 2015, which had a C-. That movie is still, to date, one of the most hated comic book movies of all time. And now Joker 2 is below that. That's mind-boggling. And they also put it in another perspective here. Borderlands, which I believe is the worst movie of this year, by far, I think it is significantly worse than Joker 2, actually has a D+, meaning that it has a higher score than Joker 2. And Madam Web, which I believe is one of the worst comic book movies of all time, has a C+, so significantly higher than Joker 2. Initially, I just assumed that all cinema scores would skew on the very low side of things, because when people go see a movie that's bad, like a Madam Web, like a Fantastic Four, like a Joker 2, their initial reaction is obviously going to be anger, like, I wasted money on this is absolute dog shit, thus the cinema scores would always be low. But when I saw Madam Web had a C+, I realized that just wasn't really the case. There are people that go see these objectively dog shit films, and they just have dog shit taste that aligns with it, so they liked it. So Madam Web having a C+, it's not always just going to be the most outraged of people every time. Joker 2 is so universally hated by critics and audience alike that even just gauging moviegoers' experiences, you're getting mostly negative without very many positives. So this movie failed on everything it tried to do. I think one of the main contributing factors for everyone's disgust with the film is how a lot of people went into this not even knowing it was a musical. I knew that going into it because it had been talked about prior, but if you only went in based on the trailers and based on how much you liked the first one, you would be caught completely off guard by this being a fucking musical. The trailers try their best to hide that. There's little hints that there might be some kind of music scene, but there is nothing in the trailers that would have you going into this thinking that you're getting a full-blown fucking Red Alert musical. So a lot of people felt really misled by that, and I imagine that contributed heavily to how much they hated it. Now, I don't agree that Joker 2 Folie Deux is the worst comic book movie ever. I think that is an absurd claim. There are significantly worse comic book movies, and it is definitely not worse than Borderlands, but I do agree that Joker 2 is the most disappointing movie, most disappointing comic book movie. It is shocking how you'd follow up a movie that was so well regarded, Joker, with this sequel that seemed to really hate the first film. This movie kind of went out on this vendetta to try and undo everything of the first film, and it just sucks. And even if it didn't have that grudge against the first movie and its success, this film on its own two legs is also trash. It's a terrible plot. It's a really messy clusterfuck of a narrative. Nothing really works here. The movie ends in the exact same spot that it begins, with pretty much nothing changing and an abrupt death. It is the least satisfying film ever that has nothing redeeming about it, really, aside from some good performances. And I guess if you really like musicals, there's a couple of songs in there that are just good songs, but even the musicals are lackluster because they don't really tie into the story. It's just unsuccessful with everything that it did, and it did not do much in the first place. I was talking with a buddy of mine about how shit Joker 2 was, and we were just kind of spitballing like what made it so bad and how it even got to that point. And then later he sent me this post from Culture Crave that kind of gives bullet points on how this catastrophe came into existence. So I've heard some of these, but some of them were brand new information. So apparently the idea came to Joaquin Phoenix in a dream. And there's multiple sources that corroborate that little nugget of lunacy. It turns out that it was Phoenix who came up with the idea for the sequel, which came to him in a dream. And he and Phillips brought this idea to former Warner Bros. Chairman Toby Emmerich, according to sources. After one insider was asked who the movie was made for, they responded with 2 words: for Joaquin. That is so silly. I hear that a lot, actually, though. That's a pretty common cliche where if people are asked about something like, how did this come to be? Some people will default to just making up some pretentious nonsense like, oh, it came to me in a dream, actually. I doubt it. I really doubt that. But let's just assume in this case it's real. Joaquin Phoenix had a dream about Joker 2 being a musical. Just keep that a dream, buddy. Like, that's a stupid idea. That's not even something worthy of taking to anyone. That's embarrassing. And what's even more embarrassing is how up his own ass Todd Phillips is that he thought that that was a great decision, and he thought he knew better than everyone else, so he shunned the rest of the department to do his own thing, because he knew better. He had the billion-dollar blockbuster mega-hit Joker. He can do no wrong. So he ran with this stupid idea that came to Phoenix in a dream. They also apparently tossed around another stupid idea about putting it on Broadway before making it into a film. Though I guess admittedly it would have been better on Broadway than in a movie setting, because at least then they could try and make the musicals work and weave it more into the actual plot. But unfortunately we were cursed with this film. Todd Phillips had free reign with Warner Bros. Wanting him to do his thing, and the film had no test screenings. Because why would you test screen this? Todd Phillips knows what you like. Clearly, he's in your fucking walls. He is in your noodle reading your mind. He's delivering that fire that you've been looking for with Joker sequel. Lady Gaga signed on before the script was finished. That one I don't think is that big of a deal. She is a talented actress, so if she signed on because she was excited for the script even though it wasn't done, I don't think it's that surprising or that big of an issue, but I do imagine she might have some regret with agreeing to do this before seeing the final script, because this has become a joke. Next, the new DC boss, James Gunn, had zero involvement, gave notes, but Todd Phillips didn't use them. Used them for toilet paper, I'm sure. I mean, why would you try and give notes to Todd Phillips? I mean, he's got no blemishes on his resume. He knows how to handle a sequel. What could you possibly have notes on for Joker Folie? It's a fucking masterpiece, clearly. God, I don't know a whole lot about Todd Phillips other than his previous work, but his attitude for this movie is so yucky. It's so embarrassing just reading about him. The film had a budget of $200 million, which included a $20 million salary for Phoenix, $12 million for Lady Gaga. Not surprising, almost every blockbuster that comes out is in like the $100-200 million plus ballpark. I imagine this film in the marketing budget alone adds an additional $200 million to that figure. Musical aspects were largely downplayed in marketing, with director Todd Phillips at first insisting it wasn't one. I don't remember Todd Phillips trying to shut that down or anything, put the kibosh on it. For as long as I can remember, the film, since its official announcement, had always had that knowledge revealed that there was a lot of musical elements to it. So I went in with the impression that this was going to be a musical, and I imagine a lot of others did as well. But again, if you just watch the trailers, it doesn't really come across that way. So perhaps Todd Phillips made that conscious decision to hide that fact, because musicals, I mean, especially for fans of the first Joker movie, probably aren't going to be that enticing for this kind of audience. So I imagine that's probably accurate, but I don't recall Todd Phillips trying to downplay it. Christopher Nolan reportedly changed the ending of the first movie because it ended with Phoenix's Joker carving a smile. There was no resistance for the sequel, with Nolan leaving Warner Bros. That was fascinating to me. So apparently, Todd Phillips had actually wanted in the first film him to cut the smile into his face. Christopher Nolan was apparently still with Warner Bros. At the time, so he had say-so here and said, "You're a fucking idiot." No, he shut that shit down real quick. But now that Nolan left Warner Bros., Todd Phillips was left to his own devices again and went hog wild, so as all of you know by now, the Joker 2 ends with a completely random psychopath who shanks Joaquin Phoenix's Joker in the hallway where the movie begins, because nothing in this film fucking changes and nothing actually matters in the movie. This random guy abruptly kills him, and then in the background cuts a smile into his face. Just Todd Phillips paying a little disrespect to Nolan here, and the legacy that Nolan built with that Joker. It's such an insulting thing to conclude here, because it's not well done. It comes out of nowhere, and this whole film is garbage in the first place, so it's just an even bigger waste of time. I understand why Nolan would absolutely not want Phillips to do that. It's also just highly unnecessary and doesn't actually tie into anything. So it's super dumb, but since Nolan wasn't at Warner Bros. At the time, Todd Phillips unfortunately got to do it, and we're all worse off for it. This next one had me giggling. Todd Phillips was secluded on a ranch during the opening weekend. I think he was bracing for the storm. I think he knew that this was not going to be received well. It was already not being highly reviewed from the people that had already seen it. So I imagine he had the inkling that, man, maybe he missed the mark. Or I could be totally wrong. Perhaps this is Todd Phillips just under the impression that his high art speaks for itself, and he wants people to come up with their own conclusions based on the nothing burger he served them. So he isolated himself from the rest of society to give us this chance. But more than likely, he just went to the ranch to just go ahead and tune everything out and count all the money Warner Bros. Dumped on his fucking front porch for this absolutely trash sequel. Film was panned by fans and critics. It currently has a 33% from Rotten Tomatoes critics and a 31% audience score. It has the cinema score of D, lowest ever for a comic book film. Domestically opened with $37.8 million, which is lower than comic book films like Morbius and the Marvels, and it needs $450 million globally to break even, which may lose the studio over $150 million, and Warner Bros. Discovery is already in $40 billion of debt. And god damn it, they earned every penny of that debt. Warner Bros. Keeps making the stupidest decisions. I am always surprised to see what new batshit insane idea fucking Zaslav comes up with. Like, every move he makes, he's like the opposite of King Midas, where King Midas would turn things to gold. Zaslav comes around with a cheese touch. He turns everything to actual poop. He is just, I don't know how he even got this position. He is bad at his job. So Warner Bros. Is deep in debt. This is not helping at all. And I just had to talk about it again. You know, Joker 2 is all about musicals and dancing, so you know what? I'll give you one of these. I'll dance on the grave of Joker 2. What a fucking disaster. And it earned it too, man. The movie is bad. The decision making was bad with it. And Warner Bros. Really needs to figure it out, because it is getting embarrassing for that whole company. That's about it. See ya. Madam Web is a movie a lot of people wrote off pretty quickly. The trailers are abominable. Let's not, beat around the bush here. And the press tour that Dakota Johnson went on, who was the lead for this film, was a real head scratcher, because she just openly seemed to despise the film with the way she talked about it. One of her interviews, she's like, yeah, I don't even know if the movie's good. And spoiler alert, turns out it wasn't. So maybe she really can see the future, because she knew this one was a super stinker. This movie is a straight up clunker. And this film was produced by some of the best in the business, Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless. Those might not be household names, but I promise you're familiar with their work. Their resume is nothing but heaters. Dracula Untold, Last Witch Hunter, Gods of Egypt, Power Rangers, Morbius, and Madam Web. They are, without any exaggeration, undoubtedly the Kobe Bryant and Shaq of producing dog shit movies. They only write horrible garbage, and somehow they keep getting worse. Now, I wouldn't say this film is worse than Morbius, but I would say it's just as bad. It's not better, it is just exactly the same as Morbius in terms of how dog shitty it is. So it's really impressive that throughout this decade of Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless working in Hollywood, they have somehow found a way to start awful and find new ways of getting worse at it, and then accidentally making the Power Rangers movie that was at least pretty decent. I didn't hate that one. But everything else, everyone hates for the most part. But anyway, with that out of the way, let's talk about Madam Web here. So, I'm not clairvoyant, but I think everyone's going to dislike this one because there's almost nothing to like about it. The
actors and actresses in here, they really don't seem to try very hard at all, save for a couple of scenes, which I think probably were some of the first scenes that were shot when the script was different. As I understand it, this script went through a lot of changes from when Dakota signed on to what eventually got puked out onto the big screen here. So I think some of the good scenes where like the performances are actually giving a shit about what's going on were probably from the original shoots before everything got cattywampus and ruined somewhere along this messy journey. But for the most part, you're not even really watching superheroes versus supervillains. You're watching zombies kind of just speak at each other occasionally. It's like you're watching performances from people that are sleepwalking through their lines. There's really no true effort. And it's clear from the very beginning of this film. I wrote notes in the beginning because I couldn't believe what I was watching, and then at some point I got hypnotized and stopped writing notes, and then at the very end, after everything had happened, the dust started to settle as it was like wrapping itself up in the last 2 minutes, I just instantly fell asleep. Like, I didn't even feel myself getting tired. My eyes just closed and I was out for like 3 minutes until Aaron, who went with me, was like, "Charlie, you're sleeping." I was like, oh my god. I didn't even know. Like, my body shut down from like how confused I was that this movie even got made in the state that it's in. But anyway, very opening. This is in the trailer, that meme. He was with my mother when she was studying spiders right before she died or whatever. That line's not in there just like that, but it is in there in the same essence, just broken up. So from the very beginning, that bad guy Ezekiel's line is, "I agreed to be your bodyguard because I thought you were close to finding the spider that can give us the superpowers if we can use its abilities." And I think I was paraphrasing because that was a few lines. She interrupted him at some point. But his first line is, I agreed to be your bodyguard because you told me you were close to finding the spider that's going to give us superpowers," or something to that effect. And she's like, "It's a very elusive spider because it's so powerful and gives all of these superpowers." Like, there's no dialogue in this movie that would ever be something a single human being would say to another in the real world. It is baffling that anyone signed off on it. Because these aren't characters, they're just plot point vessels and nothing else. No character here has any personality whatsoever, especially not the 3 spider women that Madam Web is protecting. They don't get any fleshing out whatsoever. They're basically just 3 characters that need to be saved just because, and that's it. There's no real reason for it. And Madam Web is a very interesting case study here because she's a paramedic. Thus, her whole career is saving people, yet when it comes to saving these 3 spider women, she tries her best to just dump them off onto their parents, which is basically just a death sentence because they're being hunted by evil spider guy. So, like, I don't know what she thought would happen there, like the parents just hit spider guy with a frying pan to defeat him or something, but she does not want any part of this responsibility at all, even though her career is fucking saving people. She wants nothing to do with actually saving them and reluctantly does so. But I'm jumping all around now, too. I'm so scatterbrained with how bafflingly bad this movie was. So anyway, like, even from the very beginning, it was clear that this dialogue was going to be terrible. But it somehow finds a way to get even worse than you'd ever expect it to be. But anyway, so after the mother finds the spider, she takes it to the camp and Ezekiel betrays her. He shoots 2 of the people. The mom goes, "Oh, jeepers, creepers, zoinks. What are you doing?" And she says, "I don't understand why." And then goes on to explain that this spider, if we can use its properties, can help people. And that's when Ezekiel, the main bad guy, gets his only amount of, even an iota of an attempt to give him a background story or any motivation or whatever at all. He says, "Not interested in helping people because no one helped me and my family when we were starving." And then he shoots her. That's all we ever get about him as a character. After that, he becomes bent on just killing the 3 spider women because he can't stop having nightmares about them killing him as like a prophecy that's going to happen in the future. We get nothing else about that guy at all. He is actually just cartoonishly evil beyond that. Nothing else. And he also fucking sucks at being a supervillain because he has like these superhuman abilities, but all he does is walk menacingly and crawl on the walls sometimes, and that's it. He at no point ever really seemed like a threat at all. Even for a second. There wasn't a single scene where I was like, "Oh shit, he's here. This is gonna be a tough one." Also, he can like poison people by like holding onto them, like gripping them tight. But other than his cheese touch and like the ability to crawl on walls, he doesn't really do much else as a supervillain, except whine. But anyway, I actually pretty much summed up the entire narrative here. The only thing I left out is how Cassie was born. So after the mother gets shot, it turns out she was pregnant, and the locals that were using the spider's venom for superpowers picked up the mother and then delivered the baby for her after letting a spider bite her, which of course gave Cassie powers, which didn't awaken until that accident that is now in the iconic viral clip that's gone around where as a paramedic she tries to save somebody and then the car ends up hitting the water and she bumps her head and now she can see the future, kinda. So that's the origin of her power, and the narrative is she can see the future, and at one point she sees these three girls get killed by a spider guy, and he's a bad guy. She doesn't like bad guys, so she tries to save the girls from him, and then she's just on the run the entire time. And the spider guy wants to kill them because he doesn't want them to kill him. It doesn't get any deeper than that, really. It's very surface level shit, and that's kind of the entire narrative in a nutshell, with tons and tons and tons of awful scenes that make no sense at all. But I'm not even gonna bother breaking those down for you because who gives a fuck? They didn't give a fuck when making it, so why should you, the audience member? I will say though, this film, for being a superhero film, has no action at all. In fact, none of the superheroes even fight the bad guy. And they don't even wear a costume or anything at all until the very last scene of the movie. The only thing you get for a superhero showdown is in Spider Guy's visions, where he sees the three Spider Women beat him up and then toss him out of a window. And that's a 30-second scene. After that, they never actually fight him at all. What happens is when he shows up, Cassie hits him with a taxi cab at one point, and then that stuns him. And then he shows up again 30 minutes later, and then Cassie hits him with an ambulance, which stuns him. That's the extent of their fighting. The climactic final showdown, he basically beats himself. So Cassie's using her visions of the future and kind of positioning him where he needs to be for the environment to take care of him, because the environment's going up in flames. They did set up some traps to a certain extent, and they kind of give him obstacles to go through, but it's not really fighting him. It's kind of like Amnesia when you're running away from the monster, basically. That's how their fights go with the evil villain, until eventually the environment beats him and then he gets crushed by a giant sign. It sucks. It sucks. This isn't a superhero movie or anything at all. This is a fucking slop fest, is what it is. It's not entertaining. Morbius, I would actually argue, was more entertaining than Madame Web, and that is saying something. But again, I don't think Madame Web is necessarily worse than Morbius. I still think they're about equal in terms of their shittiness. Another thing that's painfully obvious is that this movie did its absolute best to erase any and all mention of Spider-Man or anything in that universe whatsoever, and tried to keep all of that as minimal as possible, and you could actually feel some cuts where things were just scrubbed. So I truly believe the original vision for this film was something entirely different, and what we got is just a mess. And I'd like to give you a scene that I think perfectly encapsulates just how much effort went into this movie, how much thought went into this movie at the end of the day. So while the three girls are hiding from Spider Guy, and I should explain, Spider Guy fucked an NSA woman and got her passcode to all of the cameras across the globe so that way he could track down the three girls from his nightmares. So he uses that technology to basically transfer his mind's eye image of these three women and get them in the real world, and he used the NSA computers to access all the cameras to real-time find them with his assistant. So that's how he's able to keep finding them. And Cassie and the gang knew that. They knew they needed to avoid cameras, and they eventually decided to go with Ben, who's Cassie's friend, and keep the three girls there while Cassie's doing some research of her own. And that's working really well. The three girls are at Ben's place. Spider Guy can't find them, and that's all, great stuff. And then the woman staying with Ben has her water break, and she's about to give birth. So now they're rushing to get her to the hospital. And by they, I mean the entire kit and caboodle. The entire group, for some reason, decides to accompany Ben and the woman to the hospital. So all three girls now get in a car and take off down public roads and immediately get picked up by cameras because fucking obviously they would. Why were they going with them to the hospital? I have no idea. They could have just stayed at the house because that was clearly working. And I don't know if I didn't hear the reason why they went with them or if they just didn't even bother because they didn't think anyone would be awake long enough to even get to that scene. I don't know. But they could have just stayed at the house and been completely safe and avoided conflict with Spider Guy if they had just stayed there. Which would have been the logical thing too, because why does Ben want these three teenage girls accompanying them to the hospital in the first place for the birth here? There's no logic to it. Why would you just fucking stay there? Just stay there and wait. But anyway, they don't. That's just an example of how little thought even really went into the movie. I just don't see what the point of making it even was anymore. It doesn't tie into anything Spider-Verse related. It doesn't want to. It really doesn't want to. And it doesn't really want to try to stand on its own two legs either, so why make it? I don't get it. It's just another blemish on the record of this screenwriting duo that keeps making trash. I like, after seeing it, I'm just kind of at a loss for words for what they expected the response to this one to be, because I really can't imagine anyone sitting down and enjoying it. The biggest sin this movie commits is that it's boring. It's really boring. If you're going to a superhero film, there's at least a couple of things you expect, like the basics of having fights at the bare minimum. Morbius, for all of its flaws, had fights. This doesn't even have that. There's none of that. It's just the worst dialogue ever, constantly, and nothing more. And somehow, even with all of this dialogue, you still learn nothing about the characters. They're still so bland because they don't even give them depth or try to. It's just constantly either saying not good jokes or just saying a whole bunch of fucking nothing to begin with. So anyway, to sum it all up, Madam Web, not good. Boo. Pretty stinky. If I was to plug it into the moist meter, I'd give Madam Web a 15%, I would say. But yeah, I wouldn't even call it like a fun bad movie. It was just bad. I don't know if this one's going to pop off with memes like Morbius did, because there's really nothing memeable about it other than really bad dialogue and nothing else. It's, yeah. But we'll see. Anyway, that's about it. So yeah. I actually got you with a classic prank. I wanted to mention one more thing. By the end of the film, Cassie finally, figures out how her powers work really well, and she immediately uses it to be annoying. So, at the end of the film, she ends up going blind to match her comic book counterpart, and she immediately starts seeing the future for everything. And the way she applies this is the three girls come over with some takeout food, and she's like, "Oh, thanks for the," and then lists the takeout food, and they're like, "How did you know that?" And she just smiles, "I saw it." And then she says, "Bless you," to one of them, and she goes, "What do you mean, bless you?" Achoo! Predicting her sneeze. So she's using it just to be annoying. That's so hype. I mean, amazing. I just had to mention that. Okay, now that's it. See ya. Hi, I bet you can't even tell that I have a mental illness. And that mental illness is called an addiction to bad movies. I can't help myself. I see every new horror movie that comes out. I've seen every single 2024 horror movie except for one. The one good one, apparently, which is Late Night with the Devil. I've seen every single other horror movie, and I double-checked. And I at this point, I don't even know why. Like, I know they're going to be awful going into them. And you all know I love bad movies, but I also know going into most of these that they're not going to be so bad they're good. They're just going to be a genuine, complete waste of time. So you have to wonder, am I possessed by some kind of dog shit movie demon that just somehow deep in my soul compels me to go waste money and time to see these on the big screen? Today I subjected myself to The Exorcism starring Russell Crowe. This one was really interesting. Not the movie itself, that was the furthest thing from interesting, but The concept of this movie fascinated me because last year Russell Crowe was in a movie called The Pope's Exorcist, where he played another exorcist. So I thought this was like the extended Pope's Exorcist universe, but these two movies have no relation to one another. He played the same role twice. He said like King Neptune, that was so good I think I'll have it a second time. He fucking said, hey, where's second breakfast? I love playing the exorcist role. And at the end of The Pope's Exorcist, they set up like a Men in Black style universe where there's this group that goes and fights the demons that are possessing innocent humans. And it all happens in the shadows, behind closed doors, where God refuses to look. Well, I'm going a little far there, but basically they set it up as I'm assembling a team of elite exorcists. We gotta go kill all the demons. We gotta go fuck them in the face. So they conclude that movie with like this almost pseudo montage of like exorcists getting ready and setting up like a network to track possessions and all of that. I have expected Linkin Park's What I've Done to start playing, like the end of the Transformers movie when Optimus Prime makes a call out to the cosmos for more Autobots. I thought that was going to happen, but for exorcists. So this movie I went into really thinking that it tied into that universe. And can you believe my surprise when it turns out he's just playing the same role in a different way? And the movie's bad. But here's the really crazy thing. The whole movie's not bad. I actually thought almost the entire first half of the film was pretty decent. Like, it's not amazing by any means, but with all the slop that you get fed, like the fucking pigs we are in the movie theater seeing these horrible horror movies, it was at least a step above most of that. So the film's concept is they're filming a remake of the original Exorcist movie, which they treat like Voldemort. They don't name it, but they keep implying it, and they keep using the similar themes and scenes from the original Exorcist in a modernized way. So Russell Crowe gets the role of the Exorcist, who's going to perform the climactic final moment there. And he gets the role because the person prior to him got attacked by a demon on set and killed, and it led Russell Crowe, who was an actor struggling with alcoholism and drugs and just a really troubled past, to land this big position. And throughout the filming of the movie, more and more creepy, evil things keep happening as a demon has infiltrated Russell Crowe himself. And I actually really like the set here, where they have like this dollhouse, this open dollhouse that they're in filming the scenes, and Russell Crowe's struggling with the material, and the director's saying some really mean things to him, actually just talking shit like it's a League of Legends lobby, getting real toxic to try and bring out the best performance of him. His daughter also hates him because he's an alcoholic drug addict who abandoned her and her mother when the mother had cancer, and he was out apparently just getting high, getting drunk, and chasing pussy, as the director called it. So they set him up as like some irredeemable piece of shit who's doing everything he can to just get this last great performance, and like he really wants to nail this role, but just can't seem to do it. So as he's trying, he just keeps getting worse and worse. The demon infiltrates him deeper and deeper, and the performance from Russell Crowe is pretty good. Like, it actually seemed like he tried very hard in this role. The daughter's performance was really good too. Like, they actually tried to put their best foot forward for this movie, and it's such a shame that it all completely falls apart and wasn't worth trying for in the end. So, like I said, I do think the first half is at least decent. Like, I find it to be a compelling story that I haven't really seen before like this. It started off pretty self-aware, and then it completely lost that and fell into almost a parody of itself. But I will say, even in the first half, which is definitely the best part of the film, which I guess really ultimately isn't saying much. That's like saying the best part of a poop is when it comes out of your butt. It's like, okay, I guess. So, like, the first half, they still don't set up scares very well. They actually do build tension okay, but there's no real scare that happens or anything that ever comes from it with all the tension. They usually just take the cheapest way out with like the lamest jump scare ever, where it's just like a really quick loud noise of something that just kind of appears out of nowhere. So, like, example, Russell Crowe's getting like possessed. The daughter sees him just kind of standing, like sleepwalking. She goes up to him, and they just stand there staring, or she just stands there staring at him for a second while he's doing this.
and then all of a sudden he snaps out of it going, and it's like, okay, I mean, I guess. Like, it was, they built up tension for like 3 straight minutes, only for that to be like the big payoff scare. And it's just very silly. Like, it's just, it just is. Like, that's silly. Like, you laugh at that, not go like, oh, geez, jeepers. No one goes like, zoinks, you got me with that. It's just, oh, okay, loud noise startled me. That's a really silly loud noise. There's also just a lot of things in this movie that they kind of set in place and then do nothing with. So, like, the director, he's clearly a bad guy. He is a villain saying some heinous shit to Russell Crowe's character, Anthony, and he gets nothing for it. Like, the demon gets very upset at him, but then does nothing to kill him or, like, you know, give him any level of, like, comeuppance or anything, even though they really set it up like that was going to happen. It just doesn't. There's also a romance plot with his daughter that also just doesn't go anywhere. Like, I guess the only reason it's there is to show that not everything in her life is terrible, but it doesn't lead to anything, and they end up abandoning the relationship subplot. So, like, I feel like at some point, apparently this movie went through a lot of delays. I feel at some point they just said, fuck it, we're going to Frankenstein this, we're going to cut something together the best we can and just send it. And it does feel that way. It's just very rushed, especially at the end. Also, Sam Worthington's in this movie. Huge actor. He has maybe 3 scenes. Why even bother putting him in this pile of shit? Like, maybe this is something he wanted to do because he was bored. He's like, oh, I see you guys are filming. Do you guys want me to do something with this? I mean, I've got like 3 hours to kill. You might, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, you know, I'll come play that. Because he's actually on screen for maybe in total 45 seconds. And yet, in the beginning of the movie, they put his name there as like a prominent character. Like, I went in here under the impression like, oh, okay, maybe Sam Worthington's going to have a big role to play. He does not. Like, he has probably less screen time than I did in The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. It's weird. Like, why even bother paying that amount of money for an actor of that caliber and that size? Now, anyway, let's get to the meatballs of the spaghetti here. Let's talk about that final act of the film, the second half. Hoo-wee. Yikes. So I've only really been talking about the first half here. The second half goes into the most generic horror movie I think I've seen all year. Like, it is actually so unbelievably generic, I have to wonder if they were laughing while filming it, just being like, man, this stinks, but we're getting paid for it. Just fucking run it. It does every possible cliche as quickly as possible. So Sam Worthington's character I mentioned, well, when Russell Crowe's character is getting way too deep into the possession, he starts like puking and coughing, he can't even do his line reading anymore. Director eventually just says, look, Sam, his name's not Sam in the movie, I already forgot what his name is. I actually don't even know if they named him in this movie. They probably forgot. But he eventually comes up to him and says, look, Sam Worthington, listen, Anthony can't do this role anymore, we need you to take it. And he goes, okay, I guess I'll take it. And then the next scene after he takes it, he's practicing his lines in front of a mirror, and Russell Crowe blasts through the mirror, grabs him by the neck, and glass shoots into his eye, killing him. But whatever. So the 2 girls end up recruiting a priest, well, a former priest, who was actually like a consultant on the set of the film. And they've been kind of keeping him up to date on what's going on with Russell Crowe this entire time. And then he's like, okay, time to dust off this old suit here and perform an exorcism. So then the 3 of them go to the movie set and they confront Russell Crowe. He's got the priest in a trance, and he's got the daughter's girlfriend in a trance, and then he's just like playing like goofy little games with her. So like there's a Bible on the ground, and the daughter's walking up to the Bible, she goes to pick it up, and then it just magically fucking whips to the other side. So then she goes over and then picks it up. It's like that scene out of SpongeBob with the dollar bill, where they throw a dollar bill out and then like yank it back. That's what he's doing with the Bible. So he's quite the prankster, I suppose. His name was like Moloch or something, I forgot. And then she starts reading from the Bible, and then Russell Crowe sits there and he's like, you don't believe those words, do you? I know you don't believe those words. And he just sits there like lecturing her, goes on like a monologue about why Russell Crowe's not worth saving. Why? Like, why are you even bothering to have this conversation? This is my biggest pet peeve about horror films, where like the evil demon entity gives the tools sometimes to the people fighting him. To, like, why? Why? Like, there's no self-preservation from the demons? What, they'd go through all this effort, this elaborate plan of possessing someone, and all of these steps, just to allow the good guys to get all of the necessary tools while they watch. Like, this demon could have killed all of them. Why put them in a trance? Why let her get the Bible? Why let them do that and you just sit there watching and sometimes laughing and giving a stupid speech? It's ridiculously dumb. It just shows that the writers have no idea on how to have, like, the humans combat the demon here. So they just rush through it with this cliche formulaic dog shit. So, anyway, she starts reading from the Bible. He eventually goes over to her because it's not working, and he grabs her up, choking her. And then she puts a cross on his forehead, and he's like, ouch, oh, it burns, which snaps the other two out of their trance. And then eventually the priest is like, listen, take me instead. Give them Russell Crowe back. And the demon complies, so he then possesses the priest, and Russell Crowe snaps out of it. Russell Crowe then starts reading from the Bible, which bursts into flames, another classic horror movie trope. And he's like, the Lord forsakes you, clearly. You're irredeemable trash is what you are. But then the tables start to turn as he starts reciting the prayers from memory, and then the two girls behind him are saying, amen! And then the demon's like, no! Screaming. And Russell Crowe keeps his foot on the gas, saying all the holy words, and the two girls behind him going, amen, 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 and the demon's going, nah, just squirming around. And then it eventually culminates with Russell Crowe taking that crucifix, taking the cross, and stabbing the old guy in the head, fucking instantly killing him. But then he goes in for round two, and then stabs him up through the neck, literally impaling this fucking guy, which then sets him on fire and burns his body to ashes. You didn't even beat the demon, you just killed this guy. Keep in mind, he was, like, the priest was still there. Like, the demon was using his body as a vessel. They didn't just exorcise the demon, they murdered the man. In that case, you could have just called the police to come shoot him. It would have done the same thing. So they just fucking murder this guy, and that's their triumphant moment. It's so stupid. Like, the whole final act is so bad. It's so bad. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about this movie since I saw another trash horror film. It's not the worst horror movie of the year, but it's definitely a bad one. It's another absolutely horrible one to put into this very impressive 2024 for bad movies. That's really about it. See ya.